she's spitting up all over herself. So we're off to a great start, as I was saying. Cool. I want to talk about my delivery story. I feel as if it's such a good story that I want to talk about it. I'm gonna try to make this as organized as possible, so bear with me. I was pregnant the day after Christmas. Yay, Merry Christmas, very exciting. But I was supposed to give birth on August 25th. Ended up giving birth on August 17th. I was pregnant in the summer, so that's one thing that sucks about it. But another thing is I worked on my feet and I worked about 9.5 hours a day. So because of the heat and because of my job, pregnancy was getting kind of rough. The last like 3 or 4 weeks of my pregnancy, I was having very horrible heartburn and indigestion. I was having these things that kind of felt like panic attacks. I just swore everything that I was going through was normal. It was pregnant women syndrome, and everybody else who had a baby felt exactly like me. So I ignored the indigestion, I ignored the anxiety attacks. So to my doctor's appointment on the 17th, the week before this appointment, I went to the doctor's and my blood pressure was really high. When I first got there. So they were like, that's a little abnormal. You've had really good blood pressure this whole entire time. We're gonna let you sit and take it again at the end of the appointment. And they took it at the end of the appointment and it was normal. So they were like, okay, just like normal, you're good. She sounds great, her heartbeat's cool, you can go home. So I did. So as normal, at the end of the appointment, they took it again, and it was still very, very high. So they took it on the other arm, and it was really, really low. So the doctor was kind of like, what the heck is going on? Why is your blood pressure so wacky? And I was there with Brent, so I mean, I was a little anxious, but I don't know why it was so high. And every appointment you go to, you have to pee in a cup. So they tested my urine and found some proteins in it. But if your blood pressure is abnormal and they find proteins in your urine, that is a sign for preeclampsia. Earlier in my pregnancy, they had taken a bunch of tests and stuff for preeclampsia and gestational diabetes. It's just protocol. Everything came back negative. I wasn't in, you know, the bracket for these things. I wasn't swelling too much. I kind of was the last couple of weeks, but nothing that led anybody to be concerned about my health. When they found the proteins in my urine, they were really scared and told me that I had to go to triage, which is like an emergency room for pregnant women, and I had to be monitored for my blood pressure to see if everything was okay. Sorry y'all, Ava is not having this, so I have to reposition. I had to be monitored for about 45 minutes in triage. So we're only like 20-30 minutes in, and the doctor that was on duty, he came in and was like to Brent and I, hey, we're gonna have a baby. Now, I thought she was kidding, Brent thought she was kidding. She wasn't kidding. I was terrified. So not only was I terrified because I wasn't mentally prepared to have a baby, it was just, I was scared because something was so wrong with me that she was in danger and they had to get her out. So we go into the hospital on Friday and they kind of start giving me all this fun information about what they're gonna do to fix my blood pressure. The first thing that they talk to me about when we're in the delivery room is that they're gonna give me something called a Foley bulb, and they're gonna put me on this medicine called magnesium. So the Foley bulb goes inside of your uterus and they put water in it or something, and it's to rush labor, and when it bursts, that means you're 3 centimeters dilated, which was very exciting. So before they could do that, they had to put me on magnesium. Now, I don't really know all the details, but magnesium basically is a medicine that sucks, and it shuts your whole entire body down. Do you want mommy to stop talking? It shuts your body down. I couldn't feel my legs, my arms, I could barely open my eyes, I couldn't talk, I couldn't move. First couple hours of the magnesium, I didn't have a catheter in yet because they were waiting for the bulb to come out. So I had to literally pee in a bedpan. In the bedpan, every time I have to pee, they bring it to me, and I'm like trying to lift myself up to squat over this bedpan, and I couldn't do it, so a nurse had to literally like hold my body up to pee in this thing. It was horrible, embarrassing, I hated it. I got pee all over the bed, like worst experience of my life. Finally, the Foley bulb comes out at like 2 or 3 a.m. and right after that happens, a nurse comes into my room, gives me a catheter. The nurse kept asking me, do you want the epidural? Do you want the epidural? And I was like, no. I said I don't want the epidural. And then she was finally like, yeah? She's so cranky. Anytime mommy wants to do something, she doesn't let it happen. And she was finally like, well, I kind of recommend getting this epidural because if you don't, you're gonna have a stroke, and every time you have a contraction, your blood pressure shoots up. So I'm there like, okay, if I had no choice to get the epidural, why are we having this conversation? Anyway, I get the epidural, and nobody ever told me how painful an epidural is. I'm leaning over, holding her, holding my knees. This doctor behind me is putting like 3 large needles in my back. I'm squatting over. I thought I could lay down and like enjoy the process. No, I literally almost passed out. I was seeing spots. It sucked. Nobody tells you the epidural hurts. So after that, I can finally sleep. I was happy. I could rest my body. I'm getting to the good stuff, I promise. At 6 a.m., I wake up in so much pain, and she's like, oh, okay, well, you're in a lot of pain. Let's check like what's going on, because I told her it felt like my catheter like in my pee hole was ripping out of my body. Like, I didn't think that I was more dilated. I thought that my urethra was exploding. She checked me down there and saw that I was 7 centimeters dilated. So she was like, oh my gosh, we did not expect this to go so fast. We still have a couple more hours. Let your epidural kick in, relax, you're fine, yada, yada, yada. So whatever, some time goes by, 7:45. 7:45. I am in excruciating pain, and I'm literally like saying to the nurse, like, lady, like, I'm in pain, I have to poop. And that was like all I could say. I was in so much pain, my body was shaking, I couldn't breathe, and I felt like transparent. Magnesium made me feel so crappy that I didn't even think I was gonna be able to like push this baby out. So she's like, oh, you shouldn't be in so much pain, let me see how far along you are. 9 centimeters dilated, and she can see Ava's head, and she's like, oh my god, baby's ready, I'm gonna go get doctors. Thank god. She goes to get the doctor comes back, and they're like, all right, Brent, grab a leg, let's push this baby out. Brent grabs a leg, nurse grabs a leg. Brent was in complete shock because that wasn't the plan. Brent was gonna hold my hand, like, give me a pep talk. I'm pushing out, I'm like, oh, like breathing out, like not holding anything in, and the doctor's like, Haley, stop it, hold your breath, don't cry, don't cry, just push this baby out. And I was crying just like that. I end up pushing her out, pushing her out, pushing her out, and it was very quick. The delivery was a piece of cake. She came like a sneeze. I don't really remember anything after that. I only got skin-on-skin contact with her for about 5 minutes, and normally when you have a baby, you get to keep the baby in the room with you. They take them away, clean them up, and you get to keep them and hang out with them and bond and stuff. I didn't get to do that. They took her away. She was 10 ounces under the weight where she got to stay with us. She had to go to the NICU for a day, which I guess was beneficial for me because the magnesium literally knocked me out for 2 days. It made me just as sad, Ava. So I didn't get to see her until the next day, like late at night, because my brother came to visit me and his wife came to visit me and my dad came to visit me and see her. Brent had to take everybody to go see her in the NICU because I couldn't leave my room. I was at high risk. So I was in the delivery room for 2 days, which you're only supposed to be in while you deliver, and then you go to like your fun room. So I'm on magnesium for about 24 more hours. Everybody gets to see her except me. And then Brent comes to me the next day when they had me in a high-risk room because I had to be monitored for about another day. It was absolutely horrible. Brent comes to me and tells me like, hey, if delivery took a little bit longer, you just puked all over me, didn't you? Oh, you almost done? Did you get it all out? Do you feel better now? Oh, now do you have the hiccups? Excuse me. So I find out when I'm in the high-risk room that my body could realistically only handle 10 to 15 minutes of delivery. So luckily for me, this little one wanted to be born very fast, because if she didn't, we're gonna get through this at some point. I was basically told that if this little one wasn't in a rush to be born, I wouldn't have survived delivery. My body was so out of whack. My blood pressure was at such dangerous levels that I could have died if my labor wasn't as easy and as fast as it was. So basically for the next like 4 days, I'm on around-the-clock medicine to get my calcium under control, my liver under control, my blood pressure under control. because everything was basically failing. If you remember earlier in this story, I had mentioned that I had horrible indigestion and heartburn symptoms, and they were so bad that I was literally taking a pack of Zantac a day. Turns out, while I was in the high-risk room, they did an x-ray on my liver and my gallbladder, and the tests came back that my liver was failing. All the pain that I was feeling for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks was not indigestion, was not heartburn. It was my liver shutting down. And I'm not blaming the doctors at all, because it's nobody's fault. They wouldn't have known these symptoms link up to regular pregnancy symptoms. But I told the doctors and all these things, and it wasn't just regular pregnancy symptoms. Something was wrong, and that something was preeclampsia. Remember when I said this video would be all over the place? Yeah, it is. In the hospital, we find out that I indeed had preeclampsia. It can kill you, and it can kill your baby. And I didn't know that. If they don't catch it soon enough, it's incredibly dangerous. So all in all, I don't really know how long I had preeclampsia, but I do know that while I was working, I had the symptoms for probably about a month. I kept saying, you know, at my job, I need shorter hours, I can't do this, I'm just exhausted. I felt as if, you know, I wasn't myself, and it felt like it was bigger than just pregnancy symptoms. This part of the story is probably what most of you came to hear, because nobody probably cared to hear the story of my pregnancy. A lot of people probably had scarier delivery stories, but the emotional part of the story. The reason that I mentioned that this is really going to have a lot to do with mental health and physical health and not spreading yourself too thin is because that is exactly what got me into that scary situation with my pregnancy. Are you okay? Are you tired? If it weren't for me to go through all of those crazy things at the end of my pregnancy, oh, baby. Oh my God, I'm horrible. My boob is currently out, so if you hear noises, mind your business. How can I explain this? And I was going to work every day. I didn't care about anything except for getting the job done. I work my ass off, and unfortunately because of that, I tend to really just not think about myself. I put my job before anything. I put my job before my happiness. I put my job before, you know, my mental health. I put my job before, unfortunately, in my pregnancy, I put it before my pregnancy. Even when I was tired and exhausted and literally in so much pain day after day, walking and running around these 9.5-hour shifts, my body was telling me, like, hey, like, you are doing too much, you need to stop. But my brain didn't care. My brain was just thinking, I need to go to work and I need to do a good job. And it's not because I want to be looked at a certain way at work, but it's because if I end each day knowing that I didn't do a good job, I will literally go crazy. So with the mental health aspect, I struggle with generalized anxiety, and I knew it for a while. I knew it way before I was pregnant. And when I got the diagnosis, I completely ignored it. So every day, day in and day out, I'm spreading myself so thin. My body is telling me to slow down. My pregnancy is literally telling me to slow down, and I just didn't. Obviously, it's a new day. I'm editing the video, so I'm just popping in to say, I'm talking about my job and anxiety in this context because it is relevant. I know it seems scatterbrained and not relevant, but it is because I overwork myself due to my anxiety, because I feel as if I don't overwork myself and I don't push myself forward and bust my butt, that I'm a failure. So that is where the anxiety comes in. I didn't listen to anybody. I didn't listen to myself. I didn't care to slow down. And because of that, because of not wanting to upset or let anybody down, I continued to work very hard. This pregnancy and this whole experience is really what stopped me, slowed me down, and kind of brought to light the fact that I don't think about myself enough. I am so impatient, I'm so go, 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 and I need to take a break. Obviously, it is a different day. I had a very hard time getting this video finished yesterday. I have a lot to do today. I'm gonna sit and do my makeup and get to the point of this story and why I wanted to share it. So I do want to say that I know women personally who have had way worse birth stories than mine. I know women who are even closer to death than I was, and I know people who had to get C-sections and stuff like that. So mind you, my story isn't the absolute scariest. Yes, I did have a near-death experience on top of almost losing my daughter. Now, the doctor did tell Brent's mom that my body could not physically handle a longer labor, so I could have died, and that's terrifying. And that right there is reason enough to put myself in check and to start really thinking about myself. Point of all that is my mental health affects my job, and when my job is affected, my health becomes affected. So that is why I kept mentioning anxiety and stuff like that. If it didn't make sense to anybody and you're all just like, you're talking out of your ass, I kind of was, but because of my anxiety, I kind of overwork myself and feel as if I have to, you know, go above and beyond all the time. And if I don't, I get really anxious and uncomfortable. I have to do things a certain way. I have to get things done, or I'm anxious and nothing is right. So because of the anxiety, I refused to slow down. I kind of did what was expected of me. And by doing that, I had a really tough end of my pregnancy. And through that experience, I realized that you really can't be that kind of person. As far as physical health is concerned, I have always been a very active person until I got pregnant. Then I was just like, whatever, I could care less. You have to take care of your body because this is the only one that you have. It's gonna take care of you for your whole entire life, and you have to take care of it. You need to be healthy and take care of yourself and go to the doctors and not let things work you to the bone where you're physically incapable of living a normal lifestyle. And that's another thing that I was trying to get at and struggled with my job is I was working myself so hard that I was physically exhausted outside of work, so I never even had the energy to do anything. I was drained in every way possible. Mentally, emotionally, physically, all of that. Like, I was just drained. And through my pregnancy, I'm just like, I'm feeling like this isn't me. Like, I don't feel like myself, and I don't know, you know, where to pinpoint where this is all coming from. I finally realized that my job wasn't the problem. It was me. Like, I was the problem. I was refusing to reflect on myself and to take a step back and to look at who I am and look at who I was becoming. I was just living life in a routine, going day by day, being absolutely miserable. I would go to bed every night dreading waking up the next day to go to work, or like dreading waking up the next day to do chores, dreading waking up the next day to have to leave the house. So I was going to bed with such a bad mindset that I would wake up the next day and my day was already ruined. That part of this video I want to talk about because that's something that I struggled with, and after this near-death experience, I don't think that I'm going to struggle with that anymore. I have a completely different mindset. I really feel as if I had this wake-up call to, you know, figure out the kind of person that I want to be, the kind of mother that I want to be, the kind of friend that I want to be, and the kind of girlfriend that I want to be. And that is why I decided to ask everybody for their advice and their opinions on if I should do this, and that's why I'm doing this. I feel as if there is a huge stigma that surrounds mental health. There is even today a huge stigma that surrounds just simple communication. People are so afraid to talk these days. That's an issue, and I feel as if people don't open up enough and people don't put themselves out there. People don't, you know, reach out. People don't ask for help. People don't offer help. And it's really sad because I feel as if more people, if they decided to just open up and talk and just be honest and real and raw, the world would be a better place. But seriously, you know, you would connect with people who went through the same thing as you or know somebody who went through the same thing as you, and you could become really close and make connections and figure out ways, you know, to work through what you're going through or to be educated on something. I wish that I had known who to talk to about my health and all of this, because I feel as if I made better choices and took better care of myself, I wouldn't have got preeclampsia. Take care of yourself. Listen to your body, listen to your brain, know yourself, reflect, reach out, communicate. Don't be afraid, and if you are, just say fuck it and go for it anyway, because what's the worst that can happen? You fail? This video is kind of like my jump off the cliff. You know what I mean? I hate putting myself out there. I hate talking about myself. I hate doing things like this. And that is why I'm making this video, because I'm afraid. Another new day, last and final day. I got to the point where I wasn't gonna post this because it was just so much and so much editing, and then like at some point it just stopped making sense. No, I didn't want this to be like a mental health video. I wasn't trying to do that. But for me personally, every symptom that I had, I thought was mental health related. I thought that all my symptoms were anxiety, so that's why I ignored it. Point blank period is, if you don't feel like yourself, reach out, talk to someone. It's really important. Your health is really important. You don't want to die, and if you're pregnant, you don't want to hurt your baby, and if you're not pregnant, you just don't want to hurt yourself. I did not mean to make this video so long. I did everything that I could to make it shorter than what it is, but I just talked too much. Yes, you did just waste about 30 something minutes of your life watching this video when you could have been watching like a TV show or whatever, but thanks!